two.
Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Saturday. It's a beautiful Saturday in Blackburn, as it has been for about 10 days. How's it in Dubai?
Yeah, it's lovely. You're very nice. Went to the beach yesterday in the evening. Lovely. Saw the sunset. Had a bit of food to eat, but lovely. Yeah, been very nice. But went for a walk earlier as well, and a lot of hot air around. So it's definitely getting into that summer period. But yeah, Blackburn's been very nice, I hear.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Talking about hot air, shall we begin?
I like
Nice
that
little
one.
segue, that, isn't
Yes.
it? All right, okay, right. We got to get a wriggle on. Obviously, there's a reason why we know we got to get a wriggle on. So let's get cracking. And we'll start off with Trent Arnold. We all know he's going to Real Madrid. He came on to a chorus of boos from Liverpool fans. I mean, that the man's been a loyal servant for years and years and years. But is that deserved? Is that warranted? You take it away, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of furore, wasn't there, Yub? Last weekend, they were winning, I think, 2-1 at the time when he was coming off the bench against Arsenal. Let's set the scene. I mean, he's honest, like, yes, last weekend, Ayub took the decision to play Conor Bradley from the start against Arsenal. And I think much to the agreement of many Liverpool fans and general supporters of Liverpool, which is that Conor Bradley's going to be there next season. Trent Alexander Arnold isn't going to be there next year, and therefore getting Bradley some valuable minutes in against quality elite level opposition is good experience, and I think that's the view Slot took, and I think that's fair enough. He named Trent Alexander Arnold on the bench. Now, there was always going to be the case that he spoke about it before the game, did Arne Slot, that he was looking to bring Arnold on, and he valued the fact that he could have a world class player off the bench to bring in and bring on and impact the game. Now, there's been a lot of discussion, and I'm here happy to hear your points on this one. Are you about Slot perhaps not reading the mood of the crowd and what have you? Now, look, ultimately his objective is to win a game of football. Now, some might argue well, if that's the case, why is he not playing Trent Alexander-Arnold from the start? Because he's a superior player to Conor Bradley, and that's fair. But I think these are extenuating circumstances. Now, the fact that Arsenal then started the second half quite well, got an early goal, and the game was rightly in the balance, he made the decision, obviously, to bring Trent Alexander-Arnold on. Now, I thought smartly, he brought him on alongside two other players, Nunes and one other. So I think he was looking just to kind of mask it within let's say, a substitution kind of event with two other players, so that there's not this kind of isolated moment where it's just Arnold coming on, and then you really would have been able to sense what the mood was as a player comes onto the pitch. You'll remember famously a couple of years ago when Xhaka was substituted at Arsenal, and that was to a chorus of boos, and that was a huge event. You saw how the player took to that. Of course, he won them over, and the fans won him over time. But I thought Slot was smart in doing that. But it was clear that there was no doubt a mixed reception for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, my nephews and my brother were actually at the game. They spoke about how there was even a little bit of fighting in the crowd in terms of kind of just the mood itself about Arnold. No doubt there were fans booing him. No doubt there were fans who then probably defended him being booed. And Liverpool fans are a passionate bunch, as almost fans, to be fair. I don't think that's synonymous with Liverpool. Perhaps they're a bit more passionate than others for various reasons we've gotten into in previous podcasts. But in the end, Ayub, I think it was a tricky situation. On a Slot, ultimately, Ayub, and I'll finish here for the first bit because there's more I want to get into. On a Slot, for the most part, wants to win a game of football. Now, it probably would have been, I would argue, a disservice to Liverpool fans if Arne Slot felt, you know what, I'm just not going to bring him on because I don't trust our fans to give him the reception that he deserves. So to some extent, Arne Slot's being quite respectful to the majority of Liverpool fans, and I still believe that the majority of Liverpool fans are still okay with Trent Alexander-Arnold. But there's those kind of, let's say, few that feel very much rejected, feel very disappointed with Trent Alexander-Arnold throughout the year, the fact that they've not been able to get a fee for him. That made their voices very clear, made their opinions very clear during the game, and that led to obviously a very different atmosphere within the stadium. Arsenal obviously got the equaliser. Arsenal had chances, Liverpool had chances. Obviously, Arsenal went down to 10 men. And many argued that substitution in some way played a part in the result in the end. I don't agree with that to any degree. He had a free kick. If he scores, that's going to be pandemonium, isn't it, Ayub? for Liverpool Football Club and its fans. So, just in terms of the first bit about the event itself, we'll go on to the larger picture about whether it's deserved, whether it's warranted. Carragher's had some strong points about how Liverpool fans should feel, how people telling Liverpool fans how they should feel, and how that's all wrong. I want to get into that quickly. But just the first instance in terms of Slot, I think Slot was fine, more than within his kind of remit to bring him on to try and win a game of football or to preserve a win. The fact that some Liverpool fans feel aggrieved and that some Liverpool fans are okay is par for the course, isn't it? You for the majority of football fans. So, just in the first instance, I would say I'm quite phlegmatic about it. It was definitely a news event, and it was definitely clear that there's a mixed reception. I think over time that will thaw, as does most things with time. But for the most part, I can understand at least why Slot brought him on because he's a football player. He's a quality football player. He's made a big contribution this season and in previous seasons and over the past 2 decades for that football club. He's done good by the football club. The football club's done good by him. And ultimately, at this end of this season, they will part ways. So, yeah, a little bit of I guess, a sore point for Liverpool last weekend. But ultimately, they've won the title. So, in the large picture, you're not really a huge story.
I mean, you say it's not a huge story. I think it's a story. I mean, people can argue whether it's a big story or not, but I certainly think it's a story worth covering because football fans are a strange breed. I mean, it's a generalized statement, but many perhaps aren't the brightest, or at least when they certainly start supporting their football team, there's something that
Present company included. But carry on.
but there's something. I mean, we've talked about this before that there's this tribalistic, uh, sort of base human instinct that sort of emanates from football fans. I mean, it's very different to cricket and perhaps other sports as well. It's a sport that in sort of evokes extremes of emotions. So it's inevitable that something like this perhaps was going to have consequences. Now, we did a podcast before we talked about it. Well, I talked about it that maybe Arnold and his handlers could have dealt with this differently, and I still maintain that because I do think you've got to preempt what's possibly going to happen. And I think if he had talked about that he wants to look for a different adventure, maybe do it in a way which is, I'm not talking about winning hearts and minds because people will be disappointed, but at least uh, he should have controlled the narrative. I think by staying silent. I mean, the other two probably would have been in the same boat. If they had a gone, I'm sure it would have been the same reaction. It's just all happened that Van Dijk and Salah stayed, so obviously there's great warmth towards them. But I just think if I was in any way associated with Trent Arnold, I would have said to him that, look, we're making a decision. You're going to go away. Let's make sure that by the time that the last game you play, everybody is comfortable and on board and exactly knows the reasons why. Especially now, because we're talking about a team which is on the up. Liverpool are one of the best teams in Europe, best club teams in Europe. So to leave a club which is the trajectory is going up, it's obviously going to be hugely frustrating, especially when you've got two other gun players who've decided to stay. If he had come out and said, look, I want to explore a different country. I want to explore different experiences, different cultures, and I want to play for Real Madrid, no matter where they are. They could be in the second division in Spain. It's still an iconic football club. It's a club that I think most players would want to play. So I think for that reason, if he had talked about this before, it might have placated a number of fans, and perhaps the reaction that we saw last week perhaps wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, look, with respect, Ayub, I think there's no need to placate fans in this kind of way. I don't understand it. Fans need to understand their place in football. Ultimately, look, they love hard. There's no doubt about it. There's a thin line between love and hate. But ultimately, we as football fans want our teams to win. So ultimately, we can feel good about ourselves. I support a team, like you said, tribalistic, and we want our teams to win. It normally shapes your mood. I know it does for you in terms of for the entire week. And that's fine. No issues with that whatsoever. It's what makes sport great. That is what sport is about. It's escapism. We've spoken about it before. But there has to be some semblance of common sense in terms of where you stand within football and where you stand within kind of your position as kind of fans. Ultimately, he's a young gentleman who wants to try something different. No issues. I think most people accept that. I'm not breaking any news with that. But I think the idea that you feel comfortable enough to boo him, fine. I mean, you've got your freedom to express your views and express yourselves how you wish. These are the modern values that we stick by and we live by, the freedoms that we fight for and all the rest of it. It's okay. I've got no issues with that. But I think you and I, where we stand, is ultimately he wants to try something new. So be it. I mean, I can speak to it in terms of something that I've done in the last couple of years in terms of making a big shift. The only reason was to simply do something a bit different. You get one shot at life, and you want to explore something a little bit different, put yourselves out of your comfort zone. Again, I'm not comparing myself, but it's a similar kind of life changing move. Now, I don't have any issues with that. I wouldn't have any issues if it was an Arsenal football player. I know if you get a collection of football players like you have, even at Arsenal, even at Liverpool, all you want to do is make hay for that period of time when you know you've got an incredibly good bunch. I think he's given them some good years. No doubt could have given him a few more good years. He's still at the peak of his powers, but he wants to try something different. The one issue that I do have is I mean, I'm going to call him out because I followed it quite closely. Jamie Carragher, he's been all over the show with regards to his opinions on this matter, and it's been quite contradictory. Now, look, we've spoken about it before, Yub. We've given the analogy of, you know, you yourself can express the faults of your significant other, but when somebody else is expressing those, we don't want to hear them, and that's fine. I mean, I think the analogy sticks here in that respect. Jamie Carragher is obviously one of Liverpool's own. Everton would argue he's one of their own as well, but that's a separate topic altogether. But he's a Liverpool diehard. He's a big supporter, no issues. Played for the club, legend of the club, no issues whatsoever. Great player. But he's talking about how he's not happy with some people within the media and other people expressing their opinions about how Liverpool fans should feel. Yet when some Liverpool fans expressed how they feel last week at Anfield, he said, I don't agree with it. It's not for me. And I just don't understand it. It's just hypocritical. You either say that, yeah, they've got the right to express themselves how they wish, which obviously some fans did, rightly or wrongly. Again, I think you and I sit in the camp of it's probably wrong to do so. He's representing Liverpool Football Club at Anfield, yet he was booed on the pitch. Carragher obviously agrees with our position. But then on the other hand, he's arguing how we shouldn't tell Liverpool fans how they should feel. It doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense whatsoever. Now, look, I've not got any issues with Liverpool fans representing how they want to wish to express their views, rightly or wrongly. We disagree. I disagree that I don't think that's the right approach. But then perhaps I'm just a bit more laid back and a bit more calm about the fact you've won stuff. He's contributed to big trophies for this football club. He wants to try something different. He's not going to Manchester United. He's going to Real Madrid. Um, I can come to terms with it. Some Liverpool fans can't. They're well within their rights to feel that way. I guess they're well within their rights to boo him, although that obviously must have left a bit of a sour taste in their mouths because Liverpool try and represent themselves with a certain level of class at you. But yeah, I think in the end, again, just to summarize, I think Slot's fine to make the decision that he did. I think Trent's such a good player, and obviously he's one of Liverpool's own, that he's gonna evoke these kind of reactions, isn't he, Ayub? And I just think it's one of those that over time will blow over. I disagree with your position about how his handlers could have come out. I just think if he has to give his position early on when perhaps he hadn't made his mind up, Ayub, that's the critical thing that I think you're missing. If he's not made his mind up, or let's say if he has made his mind up, for him to suggest to declare that come December, January, when perhaps they've not got much of a lead in the league, the lead in the league, and they've not got the title wrapped up, and suddenly the title kind of or the push for the title kind of unravels, so to speak, he's going to be left to held the blame to say what a selfish player he's derailed us in terms of splitting the dressing room, all the rest of it, all that nonsense. I think saying nothing was perhaps the best thing because I genuinely don't think he decided what he was going to do. I genuinely be that case. But do I think was he leaning one way? Yes, but if you're not sure, you're never going to come out and say it like he has done in the last couple of weeks. So that's the only thing I would disagree with you on. Where do you stand in terms of, I guess, Carragher's comments about other clubs and other fans not necessarily having the right to tell Liverpool fans how they should feel?
I don't pay attention to Carragher. I think he started off all right. Let's confess when he started at Sky, but again, it the media, especially Sky, any Murdoch enterprise, it's clickbait. It's trying to attract views. It's trying to sort of put something out there, which generates comment. So I've got to be honest. I don't really pay attention, and I used to really be a great fan of Gary Neville as well. I think he's wasted at Sky because I think it's too tacky, and it's a TV company that I think Carragher now suits Sky very well because he fits the type of character that they want. So I've got to be honest. I mean, I don't really pay attention to what he says. If he said something, I don't take it seriously. But just a final point, my final point on Trent Arnold about not saying. I mean, you're you're saying that he has no obligation to say. I think it's different. I think sports is different because, in a sense, there's fans that invest so much of their time, their emotions, that whether you like it or not, as a professional sports person, there has to be something that you give back. It's all well and good accepting the adulation, but you got to give something back. And I think if it, and it is ways of saying it. I think I'm pretty certain that 12 months ago he decided, or at least quite early on, he decided he wanted to go to Real Madrid. And I think there's ways of saying it. I just think he handled it quite poorly. As to whether the fans should boo him, I don't agree with. I don't agree with that. But fans are perfectly entitled. The paying fan is entitled to what they want to do, obviously without committing violence. Uh, they have their prerogative, and I think they're disappointed, and I would be disappointed as well if I was a Liverpool supporter. I mean, this reminds me. I mean, Stevie McManaman did something similar as well. I mean, he calls back. He's. I mean, I don't know what the reputation he has now, but that was quite unsavoury as well. I've never been a massive fan of that. As I said, I have no issues with players wanting to either better themselves, move somewhere, but you've got to give something back to the fan.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately he could have signed. I think McManaman also went on a free. This
Yeah.
idea that the fact that Liverpool aren't able to get market value for Trent Alexander Arnold leaving some bitter taste in the mouth for some Liverpool fans. I don't think it's well thought out in terms of just where you are. If he leaves last year, Real Madrid perhaps don't want to pay a fee, so that's the first thing. So maybe Real Madrid are only buying him, as has been their want in recent years, because he's on a free. If Liverpool wanted to sell him last year so that they could have guaranteed themselves a fee, they would have had to find a suitor. B, it seems he only had eyes for Real Madrid. Uh, but potentially they wouldn't have won this league title. So you can't have everything. The fact of the matter is, he's made a big contribution to this Premier League winning title. What Liverpool fans have to ask themselves at the start of the season, if you said you're going to win the Premier League title, but you're going to lose Trent Alexander Arnold at the end of it for a free, they would have signed up 100%. So you can't have everything. And he's out of contract. He's within his rights to make a decision for himself and his family. I don't agree with you. I still think he was undecided. Do I think he was leading one way? Yes, I accept that. I just don't think he was decided yet because I think these are big, big decisions that he'd made and that he's contemplating. So let's see. I mean, Liverpool fans, like I said, made their feelings clear. I don't think it was the best look, but I don't think it does any real damage because I think most people accept that's football fans for you. They will feel a certain type of way, and Liverpool fans are passionate. What I don't agree with wholeheartedly is the fact that Slot should not have brought him on. It doesn't make sense to me. He's put him on the bench for a reason. He's hoping that Liverpool fans would see the value of Trent Alexander-Arnold coming onto the pitch, and he can't be thinking this is a popular move. This is not a popular move. He's thinking I've got to win a game of football. And once it was in the balance, which it became in the second half, he's got to react accordingly. He's paid to get wins, so and he's got a lot of them this season to his credit. So yeah, no issues with the manager whatsoever.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've not spoken about Slot purely for that reason because I don't have an issue at all with Slot and his decision. Well, that's our thoughts. We do have a number of Liverpool fans who obviously watch our podcast, so I'd be really interested to find out what your thoughts are. And I'm talking about you, big muscle man Randera. Put your thoughts down. All right, I look forward to reading them. Okay, right. That's enough about Trent Arnold. There is a cup final, a European Cup final. I'm not talking about the stellar Cup final. I'm talking about it's almost comical. This European Cup final. It's the the battle between the next worst teams, apart from the teams that got relegated. So it's Spuds versus Manchester United. I mean, it just is. You couldn't make this up, could you? I don't know what to make of it. I really don't know what to make of it. One of these teams who have absolutely been, both of them been diabolical, could be in the Champions League. I mean, how ludicrous is that? I don't know. I mean, words fail me, but it is what it is. These are the rules. So again, always take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it is the most craziest of circumstances. If you'd said to somebody a couple of years ago that the 2025 Europa League final will be contested between Manchester United and Spurs, you'd have said, yeah, respectable football clubs in Europe and doing well and all the rest of it and what have you. Normally near the top of the table, let's say. For them to be currently 17th and 16th you're right, is incredibly unique circumstances. They have been the fourth and fifth worst team in the Premier League, and this is not a small sample size, Ayub. They've both played 37 league games. I mean, that is as shocking as it's going to get. So, incredible. I think the highest United, I think, can finish is 13, 14. I was looking at it yesterday in terms of goal difference and what have you. If Spurs had just got a point, imagine Manchester United, the great Manchester United, finishing 17th in the Premier League. 17th, Ayub. I mean, that is, let that sink in for a moment. 17th. And we've had three historically bad football clubs getting relegated this season in terms of Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. So to be the next bunch, as you rightly put it in the introduction, is shocking, to be honest with you. Now, you could argue there's been some extenuating circumstances for Spurs. I say some because they've had some big injuries from time to time, and so have Manchester United. Let me be very clear: they've obviously had a couple of managers this season as well. Amorim hasn't had the impact that he would have liked, at least on results, because they've actually worsened as a consequence of making that decision to move on from Ten Hag. Now, I've made my positions very clear on Amorim Ayub in terms of him being given time, no issues whatsoever from my side. I do believe if Ange Postecoglou loses the Europa League final, he will be shown the door, unfortunately. I mean, that's without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, that he will be losing his job. I think he'll be losing his job perhaps as early as Monday after the final game is played. And I think the Spurs will, for sure, I believe, be looking to make a phone call to the South Coast and be looking to get manager from Bournemouth in. I think it's as simple as that. I think that's what Daniel Levy will be looking to do. If this goes belly up, and I think they play this upcoming midweek, correct me if I'm mistaken. So, in terms of the Europa League, yeah, I'm not a huge fan. They want to obviously glamorize uh, the option or for teams to participate, to compete, to not just put their second string out in Europa League. If you can give them a prize at the end of it, which is that you're going to get Champions League football. Now, I think when they created that prize, let's say, that win against Champions League football, by definition, what you're saying is that the Europa League is an inferior competition because it's not an automatic entry back into the Europa League. It's an automatic entry into, to your point, the stellar European competition that takes place in the Champions League. But I don't think they envisaged. I don't think, for the most part, the idea that this would be teams having very little to no chance of qualifying through the league route. They would have always thought these are going to be teams that will invariably be in those qualifying positions, albeit there will be some outliers from time to time who don't. So I think they did it in a way to make sure that the Europa League is competitive, that teams are putting their best effort, their best foot forward, which teams do, especially when it gets to the last 16 onwards, at least for the stellar clubs or for the more renowned football clubs. But it's shocking. Both teams have been bang average, below average, actually. I'm probably doing them a service by saying bang average. For them to get Champions League football, at least for me, is nothing to shout home about. I'm consistent in that position. Ayub. Qualifying for the Champions League means nothing to me, nothing whatsoever. You want to build a team that's capable of winning the Champions League or being competitive in the Champions League. I think my club has that right now. I think that's proven to be the case by getting to the semi-finals. You can't tell me these two teams have any shot whatsoever next year of doing anything interesting in the Champions League. So qualifying for the Champions League, what does it mean? It means more money. Fine. And if you can use that to reinvest into the league and improving that so that over time you sustain yourselves in a position where you're back competing for the Premier League, which is where Amorim, respectfully, I mean, those are the heights he's aiming for, isn't he? He's not shying away from that. So I do like his viewpoints on that. But the fact that one of these two clubs are going to get Champions League football, play against the very best teams next season, when clearly they're not at that level. I mean, I think you'd accept that they are nowhere near that level. For them to qualify for the Champions League football is great for them, great for the clubs, great for the finances and all the rest of it. But to some extent, it's shocking. Like I said, I think if Amorim loses, he'll be fine. But I think there will be a clock on him next year. He'll have to start okay. Not great. He'll have to start okay. Ange Postecoglou could well be managing his last meaningful game for Spurs Football Club. I watched both the games yesterday because there was a little bit of an overlap with the timings. Friday nights are always tough here because we've had a long week of work and the games are super late. But I watched both games and yeah, I mean, some nice bits, some tidy bits, but ultimately two defeats for United and Spurs against Champions League chasing Chelsea and Aston Villa. So, yeah, a huge fall from grace for these two great football clubs, Manchester United more so than Spurs. But opportunity knocks. Like I said, I think given the injuries that Spurs have, you probably lean a little towards United if you ask me, just a little. But you wouldn't be surprised with either result. Like I said, I think Ange Postecoglou is coaching or competing in this final and coaching for his managerial career at Spurs. So let's see. I don't know how you see it, but it'll be a watchable game. I mean, two English clubs, so I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the rules are the rules, so you can't. And I think it's a good rule. I really do. I think if you want to incentivize a tournament, maybe uh, uh, this is perhaps the best way to try and do it. And it has worked because there is a there are teams who are investing quite an amount of. In fact, perhaps it could be to the point where they're investing too much, to the offset of their league form, as demonstrated by Spurs and Man United. But it's a massive, massive opportunity for these two teams. I mean, they are in a awful state, both of them. I think they've question marks about their ownership, certainly on the caliber of players that they've got. There are all sorts of issues, but I think this could be. I'm not going to sort of say it's a turning point, but certainly a huge boost to whichever team wins. I think financially, yeah, absolutely, because it's a huge financial opportunity, but also in terms of recruitment. Now, I certainly still think that Man United are capable of attracting decent players. Probably not the best because obviously they're a different Man United now as they were from about 15 years ago. But certainly, if they do qualify for the Champions League, it's going to give Amorim a huge opportunity. And I think for Amorim, it's more important. I'll actually sort of say that even if Spurs win, uh, the big Ange will be gone. I think that decision seems to have already been made. You talk about the South Coast. I think they're eyeing up Thomas Frank, who I think is probably a really, really good shout. I'd almost sort of say that he'd be perhaps even a better shout because I think he's quite a seasoned campaigner now. I mean, I think if memory serves me right, he's one of the longest serving Premier League managers, which doesn't say much, but it just shows the precarious nature of managing in the Premier League. So I think Thomas Frank will be a good shout, but I think Ange will go irrespective of whether they win or not. But I think this for United is absolutely massive. I mean, it's a huge club which has been in the doldrums far too long. I mean, I'm a Leeds supporter. Normally, or historically, I'm supposed to have a strong antipathy to Man United, but I don't. I think a strong Man United makes a healthy Premier League. So I hope Man United do win. I think Amorim is an exceptional coach, but he needs to deliver. He needs to produce the goods, and I think winning the Europa Cup will be a tremendous boost for all sorts of reasons. I suppose it just gives a trophy, gives some success, some happiness to the fans, but also I think the fact that qualifying for the Champions League will be a tremendous boon for Amorim because I think it will allow him to attract a better caliber of player because my word, that club needs quality players. If they're not in the Champions League, they'll still attract decent players because it's Man United, but perhaps not the players that he needs to arrest this awful slide that Man United are in. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be an entertaining game, but it's I think it's two clubs that are embarrassing at this moment in time.
Yeah, agreed. And look, these are unique circumstances, Ayub. And you make good points actually about Amorim and what this bring him. He's a coach I like. He's a manager I like. He speaks well. He speaks honestly. When he speaks, I sense he believes in the words that he's saying. He's not trying to sell us a story. And you're right. Listen. In terms of attracting players, you'd still be surprised if they manage to get through the group stages next season. I know you've got new groups or a new format, let's say with the Champions League. I know that's a format that you liked. But yeah, I think in the end, they're still not set up for success. I mean, that's pretty much, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Now, winning, listen, you're in a cup final. You might as well try and win it. Of course, there's no two ways about it. It's going to bring a good feeling in amongst the club, get you winning. And then hopefully he'll be looking to put this season to bed, doing some good business in the summer and go again. For Spurs, it's just you sense it's a huge opportunity for them. But I'm with you. In United, it somewhat feels as though we've made our bed. It's Amorim for the foreseeable future. Let's see how this goes. I don't think a defeat necessarily changes them off course. Whereas with Ange, it's interesting that you think that if they win, they'll still part ways. And fine, I think that's a legitimate opinion. I wouldn't be shocked. You remember Daniel Levy removed Mourinho from his job days before the League Cup final against Man City, with I think Mason taking over for the final. So yeah, it's happened. You wouldn't be shocked. Um, but I just don't. I can't get excited about it in the sense of because ultimately I see footballers, especially when you're managing or you're support of a big football club, you want to be in amongst the best teams, competing in amongst the biggest stories, and I just don't think that these two clubs are well set up for that. Interesting that you think it's Thomas Frank. That's a really good shout. If you remember, Frank was rumored for the United job actually before they plumped for Amorim. That's a really good shout. I still think that Iriola may well be the number one bet that Levy has in mind, but Frank would be very experienced, very steady. Maybe perhaps could even bring Brian Mbeumo with him, who's having a stellar season for Brentford. Brentford have had a great season. Thomas Frank's a very steady, speaks well, knows what it takes in the Premier League. I think he'd be well received. That's a critical thing, especially with Spurs fans as well. But I do think they are moving towards a managerial change. And I think right now, Ayub, I think most Spurs fans would be okay with that too. And that's just when you have a season like this, in terms of defeat after defeat, I think they've got 21, 22 league defeats or something like that this season. That is, I mean, think about it. When you're competing for titles, and even in the good old days, you'd only ever lose 4, 5 league games. To lose 21, 22 games with the games to play yet is quite
Yeah,
shocking. So let's see how it goes. I'll be watching. I'm sure you will be as well. It'll be a very watchable game, but high stakes. To be fair, you have high stakes.
absolutely. Yeah, a lot at stake. Right. And on that note, we'll call it a day because 40 minutes, and those who know will know what I'm talking about. So this has been, I think, less than 40 minutes. So good stuff always. You do ramble on every now and then. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad we've done it under 40 minutes. So as always, a pleasure to have you,
Likewise.
your company,
Likewise.
the audience as well. Thank you so much. We always enjoy the feedback that you give. So please, please, please pop your comments in there. Let us know what you think about the subjects that we talked about. And until next time, enjoy the sunshine if you're in the UK. If you're in Dubai, that's a no. All right. Okay. So take care. See you soon. Ta-ra.